and pleasant nights, fellow travelers along the path of the beam. I'm known on this level of the tower as Jaime En Fuego, and if it please you, join me here for a bit of New Year palaver on Hail to Stephen King. That is Reezy, everybody, and yes, obviously, welcome so very much to Enfuegotainment. Yes, the home of the last year for Hail to Stephen King after a number of years on the horror show. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not still a part of the horror show. I just did a Night Swim review yesterday. Lots of other cool stuff, including updating the tier list ranking for the 3 novels that King has put out in 22 and 23. But essentially, this is the new home as it has been throughout the duration of the previous year, and that's because of the fact that I decided to return to Arizona State University and pursue a different degree than I initially had. So I got an associate's many years ago, like 15, almost 20 years ago, in audio production technology. And so when I saw an opportunity with my current employer to return and do film and media studies, I was like, yep, bang, they're going to be footing the bill, which is awesome. And so that was essentially the reasoning for migrating Hail to Stephen King over to my personal channel here in Enfuegotainment, because of the fact that it was going to be more of a sporadic thing. And so I had the awesome opportunity in 23 to review King on screen, and Holly will get into that stuff in this video a little bit later on, because this is kind of another turn of the wheel, because, every single year is another journey around the sun, right? And so that is another turn of the respective wheel that is this planet of Earth that we live upon. And so yes, this is going to be a little bit of reflection about the previous year. It's going to be looking ahead to 2024, but have to preface the awesomeness of what this new year is starting out with for me at school. So I only have 8 credits left, which is rat status, but, 8 classes left. 8 credits, 8 classes, drastically different. But, I have a few electives that I'm trying to finish up in the upper level for this this bachelor's degree, and lo and behold, check it out. What class is offered at Arizona State University? None other than English 394, but otherwise known as the Art of Popular Literature, Stephen King. Yeah, guys, so I'm essentially taking a course for college credit, being footed by my employer, and we're talking nothing but Sai King, which is awesome. So the required reading for this course, interestingly enough, so you've got Cujo, you've got Misery, you have On Writing. All 3 of those are, just kind of like, okay, I can see where they're going with that. Those are all kind of noteworthy things, most, specifically On Writing, because of the fact that it's like, I know I've reviewed it on the channel here, obviously, but it's like half autobiography and then half like guidebook of sorts to just, King, and giving pointers and hints and tips about technique and structuring and all these different awesome things to aspiring writers. And so those 3 make sense, but interestingly enough, just to divulge the 4th bit of the required reading for the course, the breathing method. Yeah, the only entry from different seasons that has not been adapted. So I thought that was kind of cool. And ironically enough, I just, as I'm filming this today, we just started the semester here. And yeah, the breathing method is the first thing that we're going through, which is pretty rad status. I know Scott Derrickson was trying to make it at one particular point, and I'm assuming that aspiration has fallen by the wayside. So that is the big exciting thing. I was telling my partner, I was just like, yo, I feel like I've been training for this course or preparing for it, for like the last decade, because, having read everything Stephen King in its published order over all those years, first by myself and then getting to share all of the sentiments with you. It's been, all of you, I should specify. Yeah, it's been an awesome journey along the path of the beam, everybody. But, so, with that course in mind, I gotta say, it felt very necessary to try to return this program to a weekly format. And so the weekly format is going to be Tower Tuesdays once again. And all of you who are watching this right now, yeah, that's because of the fact that it is 1/9, that's right, 19. Now, I thought about waiting until the 19th, but no, we need to get this ball rolling, as early in the year as possible. And so I had my, I guess, celebratory first week of the new year and everything, and did some short Rapido Fuego reviews, which is what I've been doing on here whenever I have the time, covering stuff, usually besides horror. But yeah, it feels like the most opportune and just proper time to really be, just putting all of my focus once again on Sai King as often as possible, and most notably, weekly. So, guys, the year in review, guys and gals, and whatever you identify as, man, props to you, and, much love on my part. So, 2023 was an interesting year for Sai King, because we actually had 3 different films that came out, and so they were all King or king adjacent, I guess is the term that I've often used, especially in the series films that forgot the face of their father, you know, back on the horror show when I was doing stuff like the Children of the Corn sequels, the immense amount of those. And so that is what I want to mention, because this is actually the only of the stuff from 23 that I've actually obtained personally. So Children of the Corn, it was directed by the dude who did Equilibrium, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to remember homie's name, but Kurt Wimmer, I want to say. In any event, I actually enjoyed this movie a lot more than most other people. You can stream it on both Shudder and AMC+. It's not so much, it's almost more like a prequel as opposed to like a full-on reimagining remake of the original film. I saw a lot of peeps giving this mad shizzle, y'all, but personally for me, I think if you go in with an open mind and most notably, if you're into the Children of the Corn mythology. I mean, is this the best Children of the Corn movie? Hell to the no, but is it the worst? Not by a long shot, man. I still think the best Children of the Corn movie for my money is actually the Sci-Fi Channel original remake that was done. The one with Linda Hamilton, the OG, you know, comes pretty close as well. But I don't know, guys. If you want to see the full review, I'm going to make sure to link up for this in the little description box below. But yeah, Children of the Corn. That was one of the things that we got this year. And then a little bit later in the year, we got the Boogeyman. And so the Boogeyman had the girl from Yellow Jackets. It also had Desmalchin, and I love that guy, although it was in a slightly smaller role than I think I would have personally liked. But the Boogeyman was solid, guys. You know, it was actually in Cecil's top 10 of the year over on the Horror Show channel, where we did our 10 favorites of the year, as we always do annually. And so it made its way into his top 10. He actually liked it a little bit more than me, obviously, because it didn't make it into mine, but it was solid, it was competent, it was from the guy who did, oh goodness, he did, everybody hates Dashcam, but I actually really like Dashcam, and he also did Host, which was, you know, a big, popular sort of thing during the pandemic because of the fact that it was the life that all of us were living at the time, you know? And so, yeah, I enjoyed The Boogeyman quite a bit. It is streaming currently on Hulu, and I will also make sure to link it up in the description box below so that you guys can check out the review that Cecil and myself did when we had the press screening for it. And I dug it, man. You know, I wasn't over the moon for it necessarily, and keep in mind, it is a little bit more so a continuation of the story, so it is almost like what they did with Dolores Claiborne, you know, where it's kind of a sequel sort of thing that also reflects upon the events of the original storytelling. And so, yeah, dug it quite a bit, you know, wasn't over the moon for it. And I think maybe more so than anything because of the fact that I have seen and rest peacefully, Dollar Babies. We'll get to that here in a second, or maybe I should just address it right now. So the Dollar Baby, which was a Stephen King thing that he had been doing for decades at this particular point. So it was essentially where for a single doll hair, $1, guys, you could actually option one of his just lesser known stories. You know, it was primarily shorts. You know, you had stuff like The Reach and the aforementioned Boogeyman. The Reach was the one that I always wanted to make when I thought about the possibility of doing a Dollar Baby. But yeah, I've seen tons of Dollar Babies of the Boogeyman, and, you know, like the Manual of Flowers and, you know, things of that nature. So the lesser known short stories primarily was what he allowed peeps to option. You know, if you were a amateur filmmaker, if you were like a college film student, something like that. But apparently, as of the end of 2023, Dunzoid, y'all, is no longer happening, which is a big-time bummer, man, because it was something that, you know, not only did I find increasingly admirable, because the fact that, you know, King was really giving a bump and a push to, you know, those who are in those formative years of trying to, like, you know, sharpen their teeth, so to speak, if I'm going to quote the Modest Mouse side project, Ugly Casanova. But, yeah, man, it was a really sweet thing. Apparently the woman who King had specifically handling that in his camp, she is, I can't remember if she passed away or if she's ill or just too old to, you know, continue keeping track of it. But yeah, as of this new year here in 24, the Dollar Babies are donezo, which really sucks because I thought it was pretty cool. But back to the Boogeyman once again. Guys, Hulu is your chance to check it out if you have any sort of interest. And I wasn't over the moon for it, but I liked the design of our aforementioned Boogeyman and what they did with it. And I thought it was very competently filmed, and it shows that that director, you know, of Host and Dashcam fame, that he's very capable of not doing just found footage. You know, he has a lot of talent far beyond that, and has really just honed his skills as a filmmaker. So, and then the third and final Sai King adjacent film that came out this past year was Pet Sematary Bloodline. And so, along with Boogeyman, Bloodline actually is streaming. It's on Paramount Plus. That's where I watched it. But both Boogeyman and Pet Sematary Bloodlines are both available in physical media form as well. So, even though the only one that I have currently is the slight silliness of this Children of the Corn film that I have a soft spot for, both of those other two, they are available if you want to complete your just collection of everything related to Stephen King. I will most definitely be doing that. Aside from those two, I think the only other King thing that I don't have as far as like adaptation goes is the CBS All Access version before it was rebranded as Paramount Plus of The Stand, the one that had Pennywise brother, Skarsgård's brother, the one who was on True Blood. Anyway, playing Randall Flagg. So big disappointment on that. You can also find reviews of that on the Horror Show channel. But I actually had a soft spot for this flick, man. I even like Pet Sematary too. You know, the Mary Lambert sequel. Not very fond of the remake that came out just a few years ago, so wasn't really big into that. But, you know, it is what it is. Film is subjective, and as are books and any sort of creative artistic expression. But whereas I did not like the 2019 remake very much, I actually quite liked Bloodline, which was basically following a young version of Judd as he was about to go out to the Peace Corps with his girlfriend, and, who eventually becomes his wife, obviously. And I dug it. I especially liked the Native American slang. You know, I thought that was very tastefully done. I liked those two new characters, the brother and sister, the siblings that we get in the story. I thought they were really good. The actor who I believe was also in Blood Quantum, and he was also in The Revenant, the one that finally won Leo an Oscar. I don't know, I thought he was terrific in this, and I liked enough the actor who played Judd. I don't know, man. I personally thought it was a lot better than a lot of people were giving it shit for. But then again, I always try to approach from a very objective journalistic perspective when it comes to reviewing things, because, guys, I know that the hate brigade, the hate culture on YouTube is very, very real, unfortunately. I'm going to take a little drink of my Pennywise glass here. Because that was the books, that was the films that we saw that were Sai King related in 2023. And obviously, The Return of Holly was something that was a little bit, how do I put this properly? It was a little controversial because of the fact that people were like, myself included to a degree, you know, I don't dislike Ms. Gibney. I actually really enjoy her, and I've started to realize that she is kind of a stand-in for Sai King with some of her eccentricities, with her taste in food and films and all this stuff. Yes, he loves writing her because she is an extension of him, more so than I think a lot of other characters. I mean, aside from, Roland Deschain, she is the only one who he has written about more, with this being her actual titled novel. And, man, I must admit, after not being super hot on If It Bleeds, I enjoyed it because I like Barbara and Jerome quite a bit. But, and I felt kind of the same about The Outsider, although upon revisiting The Outsider, I actually liked it significantly less, most notably in the back half. I still think the first third or so of the book is very, very strong with trying to figure out, if that baseball player actually did it, and, just horribly mutilated and, abused that child before death and all that other stuff. So the Outsider in the back half, though, is where I found much more criticism for it. And obviously, Holly in the Hodges trilogy, she's terrific, but I still think that I still am planning a Holly countdown. That's probably going to be the video next week, although I haven't 100% decided. But so she got her own actual self-titled, and sometimes bands, they'll put out a few albums and then they finally get to their self-titled, but they don't do it till 4, 5, 6 albums in, whatever. So for Holly's 6th adventure, she got the self-titled action going down. And for my money, especially when I was doing the tier list update with Cecil about all of King's novels, this book is actually a lot better than I think I was initially giving it credit for, or the lack thereof, to be specific. It's the villainous presence in this that I still never did a proper spoiler review. All I gotta say is Elf parfaits. That's all I got to say. And for those who have read the book, you will know that there is a twisted sense of humor in this man, and this, especially with what happens with Barbara and her career, Jerome to a lesser degree because he had already kind of established himself, so to speak, but I loved what happened with Barbara's character. Holly's backstory exploration of the stuff with her mom I thought was really strong, really solid, and yeah, it's probably in my top 3 as far as Holly stories, you know. So all of those other aforementioned books, you know, The Finders Keepers being my favorite of the 3 in the Hodges trilogy and whatnot, it doesn't really matter because that's not as much of a Holly story. She has very little to do. As far as Holly stories go, this is easily top 3, maybe even top 2, like right there, along with Mr. Mercedes. So great book. I think you will definitely get a lot more out of it if you've read some of the previous Holly adventures, because they do reference them from time to time, but it is one that, especially with the fact that the villainous presence, as I mentioned, doesn't tie in directly with any of her other, you know, cases, so to speak, and I really like what they did with her character here, and although I would like King to work on other things, and we'll get to what he has coming in 24 here in a moment, but I would most definitely gladly and gleefully read another Holly story, everybody. So there's that. And so that is essentially recapping the stuff that I was able to take part in. Now, I'm going to kind of jump into a lightning round as far as 23 for things that were released that actually have kind of a bearing as far as, you know, both looking ahead and looking at deluxe editions of things that came out, just for anybody who is unaware. And that's because of the fact that in December, there were 2 different new 4K deluxe editions of Sai King adaptations that were actually put out. So can't remember if they were both by Scream Factory or not, but inconsequential, obviously. So there is a new 4K version of Silver Bullet, and it's sitting in my Amazon cart, and yet it's pricey, guys. I think it's like 25, 30 bucks, something like that. And, you know, people can lament the death of physical media all they want if you're walking into a Best Buy or a Target or something, but it is still very much being produced for the passionate people, those collectors like myself, like shout out to somebody like Drum Dums, Lee McCoy, who I know is another passionate collector. Cecil, obviously, my co-host on the horror show. You know, we still continually collect physical media, myself included, hence me showing you the Children of the Corn thing just now. So it's unfortunate that that is the case as far as like the brick and mortar stores, but you can most definitely still obtain these sweet deluxe editions that have all kinds of supplemental material. You know, we're talking new interviews, commentary tracks, and so that is what is present on this new version of Silver Bullet, which was adapting Cycle of the Werewolf, a great 12-chapter, sort of like small little novella that's obviously up there on my shelf. And I mean, Corey Haim, rest peacefully. You've got a bonkers as hell, Gary Busey in this. I was thinking Gary Sinise for a second. I'm like, no, that's Stu Redmond. Stu Redmond is Gary Sinise. Gary Busey, bonkers, man. He is funny as hell in this movie. Highly recommend Silver Bullet, especially for that church transformation scene. It's kind of cheesy throughout a lot of the rest of it, but I don't know. That's when it holds up for me, man. It was still when King was making stuff in the 80s, but before he had quit the sauce and all the craziness, and great adaptation. It's definitely going to be joining my collection very soon. And then the other big release was David Cronenberg's The Dead Zone 4K version of that. Christopher Walken, tremendous in this movie. Tom Skerritt, I really love as the sheriff in this as well. You've got a younger Martin Sheen as, Stilson? I'm trying to remember. Stilson. With so many names in my head, it's not quite a Kelly Bundy sort of situation where, you know, like one new factoid pushes something out, but since returning to Arizona State and just having to soak up so much information about, you know, the history of film and you know, everything from the industry itself to horror, science fiction. I'm taking a international film class, so we're going to be focusing upon stuff from, you know, Japan, Italy, Nigeria, all these different, you know, countries and their creations for the silver screen. And so, yeah, it's not quite to the Kelly status, but it's definitely, when I'm trying to remember all of the King names, it was definitely easier in years past, I got to admit. But yeah, this is another one with a bunch of new, terrific supplemental material. I do believe this one is for sure $30 on Amazon or, you know, wherever you like to purchase this stuff, guys. So those were the 2 big, you know, marquee deluxe releases that came out in 2023. And just to kind of remain on the subject of new releases here in 2024, because we're officially making that the wheel has turned, everybody. You know, the Wheel of Ka has made its way to 2024 about 10 days ago at this particular point. A little less than that, because you're watching this on 1/9/19, yeah. And so the first big release that we have is coming out this month here in January, and on the 23rd of January, you have Scream Factory's deluxe edition of Thinner. Terrific adaptation done by Tom Holland. No, not Spidey Tom Holland. And it's actually really funny because director Tom Holland, who did Fright Night, Child's Play, the original one, he does make jokes about that on his Twitter or X or whatever the hell they're calling it at this particular point on social media. It's a joke that he kind of plays up, which I think is fun. But yeah, I love this adaptation, man. You know, Carrie as I'm butchering her name, but one of the most beautiful women of the 80s and 90s. I think she was on Sliders as well, if I remember correctly. So she has a minor role as one of the gypsies in this, and King has a great cameo. But even though the actor's name eludes me, who is our lead, I love this adaptation, man. I've done a review for it here on the channel, and I'm really looking forward to delving a little bit deeper into all of the new supplemental material that they have coming out for this. And then, just as of the filming of this today, peeps, there were a couple really interesting things that were announced, most notably the one that I saw just today, and that was the fact that the Shining miniseries, so the one that was made in the late 90s, Mick Garris directed it. Garris did the TV version of The Stand. He did, unfortunately, yeah, he did Bag of Bones. We're not going to talk much more about that. Or at least, did he do Bag of Bones? I believe he did. Anyway, brutalize me in the comments if I'm completely wrong, but Mick Garris has done a lot of different Sai King adaptation stuff, has a great podcast, really good friend of Sai King's, and but yeah, he did the King scripted kind of, I guess, retcon of the Kubrick film. Now, I would never deny that the Kubrick film has its merits and its immense legion of fans. I appreciate it, I respect it, but I don't love it. And it's not even just because I'm so married to the source material, because I prefer Dr. Sleep, personally. Yeah, I'm just one of those peeps. But, yeah, I once again, I'm going to just take foot out of mouth and say I love The Shining. I'm not going to necessarily say that I prefer the miniseries because of the fact that it's definitely done on a television scale, and it feels like TV in comparison with, the grandiose theatricality of the Kubrick film. But yeah, that is apparently getting a 2-disc deluxe edition on March 12th, and so that is something to look forward to. I will most definitely be adding that to my collection and replacing the long out-of-print DVD version. I mean, if they're only releasing a Blu-ray and everything is like shifting to 4K, it's just an interesting paradigm in regards to all of that. And then the other thing announced, it was either today or this past weekend, so the remake of Carrie. So we're not talking about the one that was made for television, which I have discussed here on the channel, the one that was like kind of a backdoor pilot for what they were thinking was going to be a television series. I think Brian Fuller did it, if I remember correctly. So not that one, because I have a great deluxe edition of that, but there is a new 4K restoration and release coming, the one with Chloe Grace Moretz. So the Carrie remake that was released in the aughts, yeah, that's apparently getting a deluxe collector's edition release with new supplemental material, yada yada yada. It's coming out March 19th, so ironically enough, just a week after, you can add that Shining 2-disc edition of the television series to your collection. You can also add none other than the Carrie remake, which for my money wasn't that great. I mean, the original De Palma is still forever going to be the best because of the fact that, like, Sissy Spacek felt like Carrie to me, as far as, like, she was kind of pretty but also embodied the nerdiness. I just, I really, really dig Hit Girl, dude. She is a terrific actress. I'm a big fan of Chloe, but I just felt like she didn't embody the source material quite so well. I think even the girl in the television version was a little bit more how I envisioned, Carrie White in my head, I guess. But hey, it is what it is, everybody. So those are the couple of just film and television releases coming to physical media that all of you can look forward to in 2024. Alright, so now as this supersized episode of Hail to Stephen King continues, I've got to say there are the two uncertainties as far as releases go this particular year. Well, technically there's 3, but there are 2 which are of the on-the-screen variety. And the first one being the fact that we still do not know when the hell this Salem's Lot remake is actually going to come out. And once again, just like the Carrie situation I was talking about a moment ago, this is a remake. So they have already remade Salem's Lot, also as a television series, and to rest peacefully to the Starsky and Hutch actor who played Ben Mears. He was also he had an illustrious career, but in the original Toby Hooper television miniseries, our Ben Mears just passed away recently, so, prayers and, positive thoughts to his family and everything. But, yeah, terrific performance, by the way. I have been so curious about this. So Bill Pullman's kid, who was in... oh goodness, Bad Times at the El Royale is one of the things I've seen him in that I thought he was terrific in. But man, I have been waiting just as fervently as all of you. I don't like Gary Dauberman, but yeah, he's the director of this. He had his hand in the It remakes, and it was okay, in said regard. But I've been just incredibly curious about this particular film and the fact that it has been like indefinitely shelved. Warner Brothers. Going through some stuff, man. Going through a little bit of rearrangement, upheaval, and yeah, the film was originally going to be released theatrically, then it got delayed, then it got delayed again, then it got shelved, and then King even took to social media last year talking about how disappointed he is that, what he is hearing is that it is just going to presumably be dumped on Max, and so it's not even going to be there for, people to see in theaters, and yet... I made a whole video about this where I have a sneaking suspicion that maybe we'll never see it. It might be a Batgirl situation. There's also this Wile E. Coyote movie that was completely finished, and it was a Warner Brothers thing, and nobody knows if it's ever going to be released. I have this fear in my heart that that is what's going to happen, and who knows? This movie, it's got a very decent possibility of suctitude in my estimation, because of the fact that I wasn't the biggest fan of what Dauberman has done over the years. And I know, like, he's, close homie of Juan's and everything and whatever. But, yeah, I still want to see this movie, though, because even the bad Sai King adaptations, I still want to see them, because it is just a different level of the tower, It's its own thing. It's existing in an alternate sort of universe or whateverness. So, yeah, we have no guarantee if Salem's Lot is coming out this year. There is no set release date. And, I don't know, fingers firmly crossed, as I always like to say. But the one that we know for damn sure will be coming, and in all likelihood coming this year, I put it on my 10 most anticipated of the year when we did that on the Horror Show channel a couple of weeks ago. That's because of the fact that, man, Mike Flanagan adapting Stephen King is like... I guess you could argue Reiner or Darabont, but for my money, I don't think anybody really understands King to the degree that Mike Flanagan does. I mean, Gerald's Game, the amazing Dr. Sleep. I mean, the dude knows his shit. And even beyond that, Midnight Mass, probably his best non-Stephen King thing, his best Stephen King story that wasn't based on a Stephen King story. I still think it's the crown jewel of what Mike Flanagan has done in his entire career. Yeah, I can't recommend it enough. Anyway, Flanagan, still trying to get the Dark Tower off the ground, so we don't have any updates on that. That I am a little bit more pessimistic as opposed to optimistic about. So that's my realism, for starters there, despite his first look deal with Amazon Studios. But Flanagan adapting The Life of Chuck, which was my personal favorite of If It Bleeds, and still gave me more anxiety than anything that I have read by Sai King in like years and years. And yes, it was one of those like the right or maybe wrong story at the right or wrong time, because that book came out during the pandemic, and the beginning, the first act, which is actually the final act, or like the just delving deeper act without spoiling things of Life of Chuck gave me, it messed with my head, man. It really genuinely did. But yeah, he's doing it with an amazing all-star cast. Tom Hiddleston, Mark Hamill, I mean, tons of the peeps who you have seen on Usher and Hill House, and all of his different, like, so many of his constant cohorts are involved in this project. It doesn't have a release date yet, but they wrapped filming. It's in post right now. I would be shocked if it doesn't come out here in 2024. So no specifics as far as like release dates or anything, but just if you guys were unaware that Mike Flanagan is adapting friggin' Life of Chuck, dude, just psh, yeah, mind blown. And then the other uncertainty, although we know that this is a for sure thing, and unlike Salem's Lot's remake, so there was a anthology that was announced last year, and I'm very intrigued by this, although a little apprehensive. Let me elaborate. So it is an anthology entitled The End of the World as We Know It, obviously a reference to the REM song, which I can't remember if it was actually played in the Stand miniseries. I don't think that it was, but, very befitting based on the title and everything that happens with Captain Trips. But, so The End of the World as We Know It, Tales of Stephen King's The Stand. So what this essentially is an anthology where there's going to be a different author writing a story set within the world of I'm assuming Captain Trips America, although I'm very curious, what was happening and, in the rest of the world. There are a few instances where they mention like South America and stuff in the stand, but aside from that, we don't know. It's very much like The Walking Dead, right? And the fact that you're like, what the hell's happening in Europe? What the hell is happening in Asia? Whatever, maybe nobody actually got Captain Trips if you're like isolated in like the Arctic or something, who the hell knows? So I'm intrigued by this, and there is a very, lengthy list of different, peeps who are actually going to be penning their own story. You've got Paul Tremblay, you've got Wayne Brady. Like, it's a very strange and eclectic, mix of peeps. Richard Chismar, obviously, Cemetery Dance Dude, who did the Gwendy's books with Steve. Joe R. Lansdale, author of the Bubba Hotep and, various other coolness. You even got Scott Ian from Anthrax, who is a major Stephen King enthusiast, in case y'all didn't know. I mean, Among the Living, it's got it's like The Stand kind of adapted, if I remember correctly, at least to a degree. They've done other stuff, about the Walking Dude and whatever. So, yeah, Scott Ian from Anthrax is going to be able to play in the Sai King sandbox. And that's the big thing here where I'm intrigued, but my apprehension is because of the fact that when King has given his stamp of approval for those to, play in his proverbial sandbox, I really think of the Castle Rock series, for instance, that I was watching with my then girlfriend at the time, Lily. And so we were just like, we were into it to a degree, but yet we weren't like crazy into it. Second season, however, I thought was a major improvement. Oh boy, man. Lizzie, Lizzie Kaplan. Yeah, it just took me a moment to remember her name. As the young Annie Wilkes, terrific on that, different level of the tower, so to speak. Not completely accurate to the Annie Wilkes that we meet in Rob Reiner's or even in the source material being its own, different level as well. The first season had some merits to it, I suppose. I really like the Red Queen episode with Sissy Spacek and dealing with the mental illness, but what I'm basically getting to is the fact that the hit and miss nature of when King basically gives the keys to the castle to other people, mixed results, okay? So I'm hopeful that this is fun and that it's, just, I don't know, The Stand is in the unholy trinity, the top three for me of Sai King's work, Pet Sematary, It, and The Stand, and that's the top three, and always has been, and at this point, unless he wows me with something like he did with Revival, I don't know, I don't see anything really messing with that order, so to speak, and then the Dark Tower stuff like Wizard and Glass is like right immediately afterwards. Like 4 and 5 is probably Wastelands and W and G. But hey, in any event, I think it's a cool idea, and the fact that he's giving the opportunity for these enthusiasts of his work to just kind of jump into that world, I think it's a fun idea. I think it's cool. And he's actually giving an introduction in it, so he is going to be involved in some capacity, which is pretty sweet. And so no release date on that either, though, but it is like presumably definitively happening. But then again, my inner pessimist, and I joke with Mike Kearns from Mike's Book Reviews all the time about this, or when we get the chance to correspond, and him and I are of a very similar ilk where you're just like, yep, I'll believe it when I see it, when I'm actually watching it on screen, because they announce so many King adaptations constantly. That's why I'm not previewing any of those aside from Life of Chuck, which we know is finished. They shot it, it's in post, like it is definitively going to be released. So, I don't know. Once again, believe it when I see it, but I'm looking forward to reading this. I am trying to maintain an open mind. All right, homies of all different varieties. So now we get to the biggie. The only notched set release date definitive book release for Sai King this year. And so last year he only put out one book. A lot of the time he'll put out 2 releases in a year. Just in 2022, he put out, I believe it was both Later and Billy Summers in 2022, or maybe that was 21. In any event, King is notorious for, kind of doubling down. He'll put something out in the spring, and then he'll put something out in the fall, and so Holly being the most recent release came out in September. The fact that this next book is coming out in May, and it is a collection of stuff, a lot of which we've actually seen, or had access to, coming out on the 21st of May, and it's entitled You Like It Darker. I dig the title. I think it's fun. There's a few different photos rolling around. So the previous one that I'd shown on social media was of like the two like beach chairs, and you see like there's nobody sitting in them, but then there's like the shadow of the ghosts, so to speak. I actually prefer that one that you just saw to the one that I'm showing right now, which is the US release. So that was the UK cover. This is the US cover. Gator Island or something, I don't know. It's cool enough, I suppose, but I'm not as like crazy over the moon into it as certain people may be. But now, as you're seeing me right now, there is it's a work in progress sort of link that we have on the Wikipedia. So presumably 12 stories, at least according to that. It's still a draft, so who knows? I would imagine this is already set for, you know, hitting the press and everything if it hasn't been printed already. So presumably 12 stories. So a little over half of them are going to have been previously published, and all of these previously published I have reviewed on the Horror Show channel for Hail to Stephen King. So Willie the Weirdo, which was in McSweeney's. You've got Finn with 2 N's, which was an ebook, and then Red Screen was also an ebook. Lori, which is maybe my favorite of all of these, you know, which are going to be republished and collected in this release. So this was on, I believe it's still for free, Stephen King's website, and this is about a elderly dude in Florida who he's a widower. He gets this cute little dog, and then he has back to crocodiles, right? You know, because King spends a good deal of his year when he's not in Maine, he's in Florida. I guarantee with this cold ass January, he's probably in Florida right now, just chilling, you know, maxing, relaxing, so to speak. So Lori is maybe my favorite of all of these, but Turbulence Expert, that was a shorter one that was collected in Flight or Fright, which also had a terrific Joe Hill story in it. It was edited by Bev Vincent, who is the author of The Road to the Dark Tower, somebody who I respect a lot, but I wonder if I drew his ire a little bit because of the fact that I was doing the series The Road to the Dark Tower movie, and it was an homage to him and his coverage, and gave him shout-outs with every video, and yeah, he unfollowed me on Twitter or X or whatever, so I don't know. In any event, the fifth stuff, which was in Harper's Magazine, that one was okay. It deals with, you know, King and AA and alcoholism and whatnot. And then Onslaught in Road, which was in Esquire. And that was the one that I did not remember for shizzle, about the two attackers that, you know, descend upon this family when they're taking like this weird shortcut road or anything. So those are all the previously published. And then we have 5 new stories. So we have 2 talented bastards, spelled with an I, which is fun. You've got Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream, you've got The Dreamers, you have The Answer Man, and then the one that everybody is buzzing about the most is Rattlesnakes, because King has described Rattlesnakes as a sequel to Cujo, but I'm wondering if it's less a sequel to Cujo and more so just like a continuation of Castle Rock characters. I mean, maybe the surviving mom, because obviously, you know, well, not obviously for those who aren't aware, but in the book Cujo, spoilers, you've been forewarned right now, the boy dies in the book. He does not die in the film with Dee Wallace, and so that motherly character, cheating mom and stuff, maybe we will just rejoin, you know, her and, you know, the husband if they're trying to sort it out or whatever, or if it's just going to be, you know, more Castle Rock characters. Are we going to have some Frank Dodd stuff? I don't know, man. I don't know. Red Team go. Red Team go. So I'm very excited for this. I personally, a lot of the time, man, and dude, Full Dark No Stars, all the novella collections, you know, Just After Sunset is terrific. Oh boy, I'm trying to remember the Bizarre Bad Dreams. I had to look back at my shelf just to double check, but yeah, that was a very strong, stellar collection of stories, and so even though I've read like 2/3 of these, I'm still incredibly excited to check out this new stuff, and I have a sneaking suspicion though, if the fact that most of this has already been previously published in one form or another, King has a fall or a winter release here in 24 that is going to be like a brick of a novel, man. Is it gonna finally be, you know, Jericho Hill or something, you know, fall of, I don't know. I'm not holding my breath, man, but he did say a number of years ago when I was first doing this program and I was in attendance for the book tour he did with Owen, his son, for Sleeping Beauties, he did say that he has one more Tower book in him and that it would likely, you know, be covering that, but who knows, you know, I'm not holding my breath because at this particular point there were so many King releases in the last number of years where I thought something like Fairy Tale was going to tie in more with Tower stuff, or The Institute. You know, these are things that ended up just kind of being their own thing, and that's totally fine. You know, it's, hey, he's my favorite author. He has more than given me just a lifetime and beyond of enjoyment. And so, Talk about big enjoyment. There is a package that, as we round out this Supersize King video, that I have to. So I already opened up the top of this package that was sent to me by Ali Hamdon. I'm probably totally butchering your name, man. This was in the Horror Show P.O. box for like months upon months, if not even, man, close to a year or something. Cecil hadn't checked it. We just, and everything's going through the Patreon circles now, you know, for the Horror Show channel, and so we don't really get packages very much anymore. And then once he finally got it, it was in his garage. He forgot to tell me about it, but this is a very awesome and very hefty care package, as y'all can see, that was sent by a longtime viewer in Ali. And I'm very curious what we have here. So, get past the, oh wow, there is a ton of stuff in here. Okay, so there is a letter. So let's deal with the letter first. Okay, so let's open this up. See what we got going down. I'm trying to be as gentle and ginger as possible. And, okay, so what do we have here? Oh boy, it's extensively lengthy. Yeah, I guess I can read the whole thing. Why the hell not, man? You know, this gentleman in France, actually. So, from Bondy, France. I was just watching Anatomy of a Fall the other day, which has had lots of awards consideration and stuff. So, okay, let's check this out. Long days and pleasant nights. Hi, dear Fuego. Firstly, allow me to wish you a belated Happy New Year to you and your loved ones. Well, boy, that actually says how long this probably sat in Cecil's garage. But hey, since it's the new year, this is totally befitting, everybody. All right, bear with me. The reason I'm writing you is the following. I don't know if I previously mentioned it, but I'm a writer/novelist as well as an inspiring screenwriter. Although I'm French and live in Paris, France, I always write in English, US English. I personally love the States, especially California. Here in Arizona, we have a love-hate relationship with California, but yes, I'll let it slide. I traveled there, the States, for the very first time back in May 2011, once in Burlington, Vermont, where I stayed 8 days, and 3 times in Hollywood. I fell in love with the place. The mentality here is so drastically different from Parisians' constant individualistic, selfish, and overall bitter mentality. Anyway, enough ramblings, smiley face. So after a stupid detour through alcoholism, I got my shit together. Huge thanks to my ever-loving and supportive mom, and stop being so stupidly stubborn. And man, writing novels is definitely my jam. I got hooked on it, addicted. It's one hell of an addictive drug. Good news is it comes with no withdrawal or disagreeable side effects. Sai King would definitely, second your sentiments there. It's truly amazing. So I recently signed with a London-based publishing company, Olympia Publisher, which has very recently opened its first office in LA, which is awesome for a US lover such as me. I published my very first novel titled Welcome to Rocky Tank Town, only available in ebook for now. The physical format is scheduled early this year. I'm assuming that was previous year, 2023, so just to shout out everybody, welcome to Rocky Tank Town. I was looking over this just a moment ago, and I'm actually, since it gets into some more personal between myself and Ali, I'm going to jump to the second bit because this is where the prescience lies. So, secondly, I've been wanting to share this with you. It's a French publishing company called Jailu, which more or less translates to read it. Okay. I believe they originated around the late 60s, but don't quote me on that, smiley face. Anyways, they have, in my humble opinion, the best, all caps that shizzle, old school hand-drawn cover ever. Just mind-blowing. They usually divided King's lengthiest novels, The Stand and The Tommyknockers, into 3 books, and each book's cover, put side by side, creates this big 3-part fresco-like cover. So I'm assuming that's what he has housed in this box right here. Since I know that The Stand is in your top 5 S-tier material, it most definitely is, as well as it, I had to get my hands on copies of the aforementioned edition. So here are, along with that long-winded letter, which I loved and it just warmed my heart, and horns up to you, the 9 books. Each 3-parter for, respectively, The Stand, It, The Tommyknockers. Also, fun fact, usually French version contain more words and thereby more pages. For instance, whereas The Stand and It in their original version are about 1,100 pages thick, in their French version, they're short of 15 to 1600 pages. And that's where I have to definitely like give a little bit of my observation at least, because yeah, I can imagine just the translation process with some of these. Like for instance, Lady Catherine, she got me the Spanish version of The Fireman, which is one of my, I mean, honestly, everything Joe Hill has put out, Sai King's son, has been tremendous. I really love The Fireman. It's his twinny like riff on the stand, and I really enjoy it. But it's translated to just Fuego for whatever reason. I don't know why. The Fireman, I mean, it's indicative of a singular person as opposed to just an element, but whatever. You're gonna approach it as you such should, or at least what you think is gonna grasp the attention of the non-English speaking readership. And yeah, I can imagine with French, once again, back to the fact that we watched Anatomy of a Fall just the other night, and I could tell that there's this German woman and the neutrality of English as a language over there in Europe. And yeah, I do not envy the struggle of those who are trying to translate something, especially when it comes to mass market, hardcovers, paperbacks, and writing, for big international audiences. It's got to be a tough task, so, props to them. Thank you for your channel. Honestly, it motivated me to finally start working on my very first original horror story, the aforementioned A Tale of Two Wells and Sleepless Nights, which I suspect Robert might happen to enjoy. His love and passion for everything werewolf mixed with my favorite Goosebumps story, which is Beast from the East, and I do remember that story actually. Inspired me greatly. Without mentioning the huge, all caps, yo, Nightmare on Elm Street homage, which I'm pretty sure Cecil would appreciate, smiley face as well. Take care, much love, Ali. Hey man. Merci beaucoup. I am so just humbled and honored, and the fact that we still get these, and I have no idea when you initially sent this out and how long it has taken us to actually give you a proper response. But once again, between the P.O. Box, between Cecil's garage, between the final just putting the finishing touches, so to speak, on Dylan's new Nightmare, and the recording, and just everything that was going down with my band and with Cecil and with everything. Like 2023 was a very weird year for the horror show, but I guarantee everybody that we are most definitely going to be significantly more focused both on that end and here, with Hale on Enfuegotainment. So, in closing, got to give a big shout out to my lovely partner, Miss Lady Catherine, because of the fact that she actually was responsible for obtaining a few of my most prized Sai King possessions. Most notably, the original version of, Dark Tower the Gunslinger that you see up there. There's a few others that I'm not going to go into. I'm not going to like check every box and jump into that. However, this was my Christmas present. So check this out, y'all. I know that I have said on record various times on Hail to Stephen King that I don't love the drawing of the three, and I don't love it, but I really appreciate it. 1, 3, and 4 I greatly like more, but look at the condition of this copy. Holy smokes, dude. This is about as mint to near mint as I have seen, and as I opened it up the other day, there is seriously like the original ordering from Donald M. Grant Publishing. This is the sort of thing where, like, this collector obviously had their, very much like me, like, battered down, like, reader sort of copy. And you look at this, man, and, yeah, it's got from, Rhode Island, the Donald M. Grant Publisher. You could, seriously, like, you could dial up your order and mail it in. This is back when everything King was super horror. Because it was the 80s, man. I mean, all that he was known for at this particular point was horror. There had not, different seasons, I suppose, when Drawing of 3 had come out, was a thing. But this was very much like King's niche, very limited sort of audience. And, man, just look at that cover. It's so dope. And the biggest surprise, after she was so gracious and wonderful to purchase this for me, she had no idea. I didn't until I looked. 1987 being the publishing of this. I'm going to be very ginger. I don't know if you guys can see. First edition. So I now, courtesy of the lovely Lady Catherine, have a first edition of the Dark Tower, the Drawing of the Three. I know I need to revisit it and give it a little bit more of a chance. I have been less than glowing about this particular book because of the fact that, you know, once again, I really feel like the series takes flight significantly in the Wastelands with, you know, the reincorporation of Jake and everything, and, you know, going to Lud and whatever. But man, what an amazing book. Now there are just 2 others of the original releases in hardcover for the Dark Tower that I need to attain, and yeah, soon, it will be mine. Oh yes, it will be mine, if I'm going to quote Wayne's World, which I think I have done countless times on this particular channel. So guys, gals, everybody who identifies as whatever, gracias so very much for tuning into this super-sized extravaganza of an episode of Hail to Stephen King. I have been Jaime En Fuego. You can find moi on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on YouTube. Twitter, I just will always call it that because when you jump on a desktop, twitter.com, I still spend a lot of my time on the desktop since returning to school in Arizona State. So yeah, it's just kind of funny that X, whatever. You know, I'm with King in this particular regard, that I find it very silly. But so on my personal stuff, that's where I've been doing these little Rapido Fuego reviews. So it's kind of like bite-sized, short, real sort of bits where I give my thoughts as condensed as possible about current films that are being released into the cinemas. And for me, it's been like exceedingly easier to approach like that as opposed to trying to go over, you know, overlaying and editing and, you know, rendering and so on and so forth. The fact that it's just a very quick sort of reactionary mechanism, I really appreciate that. I even jumped over to the dark side of TikTok for a little bit, and it's still going. I mean, because there's an audience there, I guess. So, but hey, the 394 English class, this literature of Stephen King, is what I am most excited to give everybody updates about, share everything about as I'm taking this course. And I'm already a week and a half into it as of this because I worked ahead, as you guys could probably expect me to, you know, the breathing method being the first thing that we are analyzing. So yeah, as far as everything on the horror show, Night Swim, I just did a review of that, which is the in-theater Wyatt Russell Blumhouse thing. So that's a fun bit. And yeah, youtube.com/The Horror Show channel. It was the original home of Hail to Stephen King, whereas Hail is over here now because of the fact that it's been a sporadic thing. It is intended to be a weekly Tuesday sort of thing, and to kind of finish the circle, you know, the wheel of Ka and everything. Yes, there was the aforementioned bit of finishing from 23 and a little bit of 22 actually, about yeah, the newest releases of King and updating the tier list. And yeah, obviously we're gonna, you know, do some alterations about that in the coming future as well. But guys, I extend once more that sincerest thanks, danka, arigato, merci beaucoup, obviously to Ali, and for all of the wonderful gifts that he sent over. And kind of just give another look, man, because seriously, we have Le Fleur. So we have that right there. And I'm showing this for a second time because initially the camera was full. And so I am trying to give it its proper credit. Les Toménakers. They have this great little picture of King. And I know I'm structuring this weirdly, but unfortunately that's because I was reminded about this. And then Sa, I'm assuming Sa. I don't think it's Ka because, you know, based on the lettering and stuff. But yeah, okay, we're gonna do this in this particular fashion. So the reason for like the abbreviated approach with this is because I attempted to film and there was yeah, dying camera, but holy smokes, man, it really makes me want to just take a deeper dive into French specifically because of the fact that between Anatomy of a Fall and the fact that I took French in high school, it makes me wonder, you know, should, you know, Jaime En Fuego, who you would think would be of the, you know, just studying Spanish ilk, because there is a foreign language credit that I need to get this bachelor's degree. What should I do? Yeah, I'm very curious. But in any event, everybody, I extend once more sincerest thanks. And until the Wheel of Ka comes around once more, I look forward very much to all of us sharing more of this palaver sooner rather than later. And yeah, guys, it was a ginormous episode, and it was a lot of fun. So stay scared. I will always say when it comes to anything Sai King. And in this case, yeah, when it comes to reading Stephen King, I'm actually, even overdrawing of the 3, gonna declare blasphemy and say, read Holly.